Hey, I'm going to try something today. I hope it's not going to be too distracting in the video. I've just got a lot of clean laundry to fold and put away. And so I'm going to try folding and putting it, well, just folding it while I'm making this video. This reminds me of before I went on ADHD meds, which was about four and a half months ago. I started meds. So now I do stuff like this. I make videos for this channel and I fold my laundry. But before I went on meds, it was a constant struggle just to cope with day-to-day basic tasks, like doing laundry. Once it was done, it would be about folding it. It would be about completing that task. I might start folding the laundry, but just never get finished. And at one point, I was saying to a friend of mine on the phone, so I was saying, I've had clean and dry laundry, just a load of laundry on my bed. Wait, because that's where I tend to, fold it. Okay, so full disclosure, I make these videos in my bedroom, sitting on my bed. This is my bedroom. Welcome to my bedroom. But anyway, I told my friend, I've had this laundry on my bed for weeks. I think it had been like 3-4 weeks. And then I would think about putting it away, and I would think, oh, it needs to be put away. I would think that all through the day and just not manage it with one thing or another, getting distracted and tending to other things, not manage it. And then I would think, oh, when I'm done with the house things and with dinner and the kids are sorted out, then I know when my younger son is in bed, once we've done his bedtime, then I can fold this laundry. But what would happen is that time would come and I would just be exhausted and not be able to do it. And so it kept going onto my bed to be folded, but then at nighttime I would do one of two things. I would either get into my bed amidst all the clean laundry and just sleep, because I couldn't even do more than that. I couldn't even stick it in a basket or get it off my bed before getting into bed. So I used to do that. When I did that, often while I was sleeping, clean laundry would fall onto my bedroom floor, which wouldn't be a problem if it was a clean bedroom floor. But more often than not, it was very dusty and dirty. And so stuff that fell on there would then, and also if it were a clear bedroom floor, that would be another thing as well. But there were other things on the floor, including dirty things as well. So it became very hard to tell which things were clean and which things were dirty. And then it would all have to go back into the laundry again. So I was ending up washing things, re-washing things, because I couldn't tell if they were clean or dirty. They were on the floor, so they all went into the laundry again. Well, the laundry that survived, the clean laundry that didn't fall on the floor, would await me folding it, and I would chip away at it. There would be times when I would start working at folding it. The problem was that the pile of laundry didn't get consistently smaller, because new laundry would get done and then it would get dumped onto my bed. And so most of the time I couldn't keep up with how much laundry was being done. So the incoming flow was more than the outgoing. And just when I would think I'm just about finished folding it and getting away, I would do another load of laundry. And then it would get added. So it was kind of depressing, but that was ADHD life for me. It wasn't just laundry that was like that. It was every aspect of life. But on this call, I was telling my friend, I was like, yeah, I've had this laundry on my bed for weeks. Can't get it folded and put away. And so then, because he always tries to help, being very helpful, being a really good friend, he's like, oh, well, like while we were on this call, he was like, oh, why don't you just fold some of it now? What if you just, and I was like, nah, that's all right. Yeah, don't worry about it. He's like, why don't you just pick up all the blue things? Why don't you just fold the blue things? So yeah, I appreciated it that he was really trying to help it. You know, my internal blocks, my internal resistance was too great for that. And so then I kind of tried to explain to him why this laundry had been on my bed for 3 weeks. But as you can see, I've been talking about it now for like 6 minutes. Oops, need to mute my phone so that these messages are not interrupting my very professional video of me creating content while folding laundry. So yeah, I tried to explain to him why it was so difficult for me to actually get this stuff done and off my bed. He was like, it's impacting your life. I was like, no kidding, no kidding. It's like one of like a million things impacting my life every day that I'm struggling to cope with. But I was like, you don't understand. This takes me 4 or 5 hours to fold a load of laundry and put it away. Now, I don't know if it really takes me 4 or 5 hours. All I know is that I kept working at it and putting time into it, but it wasn't getting done. So it kind of felt like it would take 4 or 5 hours to actually get a load done. And I do know that there were times when I was like, okay, I'm going to fold laundry. And I'm not sure how long I spent doing that. It might have been an hour, might have been 2, but I wouldn't be done in that time. I'd only get sort of halfway done maybe. And so kind of randomly, I just like reached for a number on how long it took me to fold laundry. And I was like, it takes me like 4 or 5 hours to fold a load of laundry. It's not as simple as you think. Because I fold it a particular way, it takes me a long time. And he sent me this message saying, you're doing it wrong. Lol. Yeah, really. I actually found that very funny because I thought, yeah, like if it's taking me 4 or 5 hours to fold a load of laundry, that doesn't seem right, does it? Doesn't seem right. This is how I fold it. This is a pajama top. This is one of my younger son's school tops. These are all little clothes. They're like 6-year-old clothes that would fit a 5, 6-year-old child. Yeah, there's a really good reason why I fold it this way. I actually watched a little TED Talk by a lady who she discovered she had ADHD after having a baby. Suddenly, it triggered it. She was suddenly unable to function. And in the midst of the chaos that ensued after the baby was born and she had piles of clean laundry everywhere, she came upon a solution, which was instead of folding it and putting it away, she took these baskets or boxes. Maybe it was like, I kind of pictured, I don't know if she actually said this, but when she was doing, it was a TED Talk that I watched. I can't remember her name, but I'm sure you could look it up. ADHD, lady, laundry, TikTok, TED Talk. If you Google those things, I think it'll probably come up. But her solution, the way I pictured it, was, you know those IKEA bookshelfy square units with all the cubes? I've got loads of those actually. And then they're called Kallax units. They used to be called something else, but now they're called Kallax, and they've changed the design a little bit. Oh, they used to be called Expedit. But anyway, you can get those boxes that fit perfectly into these units. And the way I pictured it, she'd taken these boxes and labeled them with like different people's names or different items of clothing, like jumpers, trousers, whatever. I think she might have been American. And if so, it would have been like pants, sweaters, whatever. My sweaters, my pants, you know, Jimbo's sweaters, whatever. And then when she was putting away the laundry, she just like threw them into the appropriate box. And so everything was clean and findable. Brilliant, right? So that really helped her. That really helped her to clear the clean laundry. But I fold things like this for a number of reasons. First of all, I did the whole Marie Kondo thing. One of the few books, I think I might have actually gotten through that whole book. One of the rare books that I've gotten through. I think I managed it by doing the whole thing on audio. So I'm not sure how much of it I actually took in. I think I might have listened to the audiobook like many, many times. There was a period in my life where stuff like that was really soothing to me. So when I was trying to tidy something up, I would just play the audiobook, the entire audiobook, just on loop. And my theory was that I'll catch some of it. And if I go through it enough times, I'm going to pick up some of this ethos. And I still believe that. That is how it works. You know, you are what you eat. Your mind is what you input. I talk about this a lot, about curating what you consume, because it directly influences and impacts you and transforms you and changes the way you think, and it changes your internal dialogue, it changes your mindset, it changes your beliefs. So yeah, I was listening to this thing on loop, and I never did do her actual system, which is to systematically go through everything in your house category by category in a certain order. You start with clothing, and then you put all the stuff in that category in one place, like on your bed. So you would start with your clothes, put every item of clothing that you own, and that would include accessories like bags, scarves, belts, whatever. Anything that's clothing, put it all together, see what you've got. Most people have got like a mountain of stuff. Once you've got it all in one place, it's a lot easier to know what you want to keep, what you really love, what sparks joy. I love that. And then what doesn't. And then you get rid of the stuff that doesn't spark joy. Even if it used to spark joy, or even if you thought it would spark joy in the future, potentially. You let go of all that stuff and you keep the stuff that sparks joy now. And so I've not done that. Because as you do that category by category, and then like the stuff that is remaining, the stuff that you're going to keep, it all goes into an intentional, specially designated space. And then you organize clothes a certain way so that you can keep the system going easily. And with the Marie Kondo system, you fold clothes into these little things that just stand, but you don't tuck them into packets. I kind of do like a variation on the Marie Kondo folding system, where I tuck every item into itself, and so it becomes kind of like a thing that doesn't fall apart. The reason why this is really useful for me is occasionally, very occasionally, and by occasionally I mean often, occasionally I will feel the need to get absolutely everything out of one drawer or a few drawers in order to look for something that I'm looking for. I don't know why that's necessary, but I can tell you it is. So yeah, occasionally I do that. The problem with the Kondo system, where you don't tuck things to create little packets, is that when everything comes out, stuff comes apart. They don't remain in the little packets, and then you end up with the clean clothing needing folding problem again, which, as you know, I can't deal with. It takes me weeks to resolve, and then I have to sleep amongst all these clean clothes where loads of them fall on the floor and get dirty and have to be washed all over again. So that's why I fold them like this, because if I fold everything into a little packet, everything comes out of a drawer. I don't have to refold it to put it back into the drawer. I can just put it back in. I just pick up the little packets and in they go. Brilliant. It also works so I'm doing my kids' clothes that way. Just my younger son. My older son takes care of all of his laundry. He's 14. I'm really proud of him for doing this. I should probably tell him later when he gets home from school, because I spend so much time being annoyed with him, and his perception is that is just how I am, that I'm always annoyed with him. But the truth is, I am very, very proud of him. So my older son does his own laundry, has been doing so for a couple of years. He washes it, dries it, remembers to dry it, remembers to get it out of the washing machine and transfer it to the dryer. And I've got really strict rules about that, about what time that has to be done by. Like, laundry cannot go in the machine after 4 p.m. And if it goes in at 4 p.m., it needs to be taken out immediately after it's done and put in the dryer. Otherwise, the dryer goes too late. It's too noisy and it keeps people up, disturbs your sleep. So yeah, he does that. He gets it into the machine, dried, out of the dryer, into his room. When it goes into his room, he tends to use these massive bags to put all of his clean laundry in. The bags go in the middle of his bedroom floor and often sit there for quite a while before he folds it and puts it away, which obviously I can relate to. That was what I struggled with before meds. Now that I'm on meds, things don't get to that extent. It's very straightforward. When I do a load of laundry, I'll either fold it and put it away straight away, or I'll do it as soon as I can. But this is day 3 of me making videos for this channel. And yeah. And I was thinking, hey, well, today is day 3, but actually I'm usually more thorough when I'm folding and putting away laundry. Actually, I usually go over things with like a sticky lint roller to get rid of any cat hair, because I have a white cat, and get rid of any bits of lint from the tumble dryer. But anyway, for the purposes of doing this video, I'm going to just relax a little bit about that and not lint roller everything before I fold it and put it away, because, you know, it can be lint rollered when I take it out and put it on. Not a big deal, right? But anyway, yeah, it's not a problem, is it? Because today is day 3 of these videos. I feel like this is something I have wanted to do for a really, really long time. Create this kind of content and put it out consistently. But it's something I've not been able to do because I was too overwhelmed with existing, like doing laundry, buying food, making food, eating food, feeding food to my kids. Like food was a big part of the equation, just because it's constant. It's relentless. You need food like all day long. And it's not like if you manage to do it one day, you can take a day off. My life used to be completely taken up with that. But now, that's not consuming all of my energy to do any sort of executive functioning. It used to before. That was the priority. I always thought, like, you know, I've got to prioritize staying alive. Literally, just like feeding myself and my kids so we stay alive. But yeah, now I'm doing these videos. Today's day 3, but as I went to do this video, I saw this big pile of laundry that I took out of the dryer yesterday. I actually did it about 3 days ago, I think. But then I've just not had a chance to fold it and put it away yet. Well, actually, that's kind of not quite true. So the other thing that's happened the past few days is that I've been playing a lot of Monopoly. Just like on the Monopoly app, which is not something that I bought. It's something that my older son bought last week when it was school holidays. He downloaded this app because he wanted to play it with me and my younger son. So the 3 of us, we had a good time playing Monopoly, although Blaze, my younger son, would just be so upset when anyone else started winning, and when his turns weren't going well, and when he landed on properties where there were hotels built. It was just really hard on him, so we had to stop playing that. But anyway, then I had the app downloaded on my phone, and then I started just like every once in a while, I would just kind of feel that urge to sort of like go on Monopoly. And of course, because you can play with other people online, or as my older son calls it, random people. I told him, I was like, oh, I've been playing Monopoly. And he was like, you mean with random people? And I was like, well, there are other people online. And he was like, yeah, that's what I said. You've been just playing with random people. Sounded really bad when he said that. But anyway, the past few days I've been doing that along with doing other things. That's been taking up my time, that and these videos. So, and I've deleted the app a couple of times. Have I deleted it? Is it deleted now? I'm not sure. I keep having this sort of like thing where I realize again, I'm like, I just can't have games on my phone. I just can't, because I autopilot go on them and then lose hours of my day. Not as badly as before I went on meds. Before I went on meds, I would go on the app and lose the entire day. Like I would open an app, I would get in from dropping off my younger son at school at 9 a.m. I would walk in the door, shut the door. I would sit down on the stairs to take off my shoes. And while I was doing that, I would just be like, ooh, maybe I could open that app. I would go on the app. Next thing I know, it's like 3 p.m. Yeah, happened a lot. And then eventually, you know, it would take me a while to realize like, oh, I need to delete that app, which would feel really hard to do because I would be so attached to it. And then I would delete it. The thing is, whenever I went through that process, after deleting the app, I wouldn't download it again. Like that decision would be final. It would be like, oh yeah, this is not serving me. This is not good for my life. I need to get rid of it. Once it was gone, it's not like I wanted to go get it again. It was only getting in my way because it was so immediate, and that little bit of distance from it that I'd removed it was just enough deterrent for me to go after it or use it. But it's been different with Monopoly, which is something that I've been doing on meds. So being on ADHD meds right now does not mean that I am suddenly this amazing sort of saint of self-discipline. Would be great, wouldn't it? I remember the first day that I experienced being on medication, because it actually had effect the very first day, even in under an hour of taking it. And yeah, that day was a revelation, because I did so much stuff. But it's all relative. Like, if I were to tell you what kind of thing I did, you probably wouldn't think it was a big deal, but to me it was like a first time. And relative to my typical day, which was getting 0 things done besides just survive the day, relative to that, relative to 0, a couple of things is amazing. Like, one thing I remember doing the very first day was a friend dropped by, and when she came in and sat down, I remembered to offer her a drink, a cup of tea. I remembered it very soon after she came in and sat down. Normally I remember that when someone's been around for hours or is on their way out. I remembered to ask her that, but not only did I remember to ask her that, when she was like, yeah, I'd love a cup of tea, I made it. I made her a cup of tea and gave it to her. Normally when I ask if she wants a cup of tea, which I often don't till she's leaving, or don't at all, and at some point she would normally go, hey, I think I'll make myself a cup of tea, and then she makes herself a cup of tea. That's what normally happens. But instead of that, she came in, I offered her a cup of tea, and then I didn't completely forget that I'd offered her a cup of tea, leaving her to make it for herself eventually. I just made it and gave it to her. And just as I did that act, I was like, do you see me? Did you see what I just did? Because she knows me really well. This is a really good friend. It's like, did you see what I just did? She's like, yeah. She's like, I've been watching you this whole time. I'm amazed. I'm amazed at, I've never seen you like this in my whole life. Because I made her the cup of tea, and then I just kind of noticed there were things on the table that needed clearing away. And while we were chatting, I just cleared those things away. And then I wiped down the table. I'm getting really emotional talking about this, because the fact that my life is so different in this way, that basic functioning things are so easy for me. Not just easy, the fact that they're even possible and doable. Oh, makes me so emotional. Actually, I'm doing these videos. So I've been watching back the videos I did, which is kind of a big thing, because yesterday's video was 55 minutes long. The day before it was 48 minutes long. These are long videos. These are long ass videos. One thing I've realized making these videos is that one of the things that was really getting in my way in terms of creating content before was that when I went to create content, I couldn't help but bring into the process my idea of what content should look like. It's like, well, it shouldn't be too long. There's no way I would have sat and made an hour-long video before, because why would I do that when this is a brand new channel, when nobody knows who I am? Well, you know, I'm guessing most people who run across this video will have no idea who I am. So why would I do like an hour-long video? Who's going to be even interested in investing that kind of time and spending that kind of time? Like, all these things seemed to make total sense. And so I was trying to do these videos, and of course, being me, I had watched lots of trainings about this, and looked at lots of content from people who coach content creators, teach creators, and, you know, give their best tips on how to create content. I had done all that, and the guidance was, you know, be clear, make your point, don't waffle on, make it short, bring value fast, like within 10 seconds. And at the very beginning, say exactly what you're going to do for the video. Say, look, I'm going to give you these three very useful things, and then deliver those 3 useful things, and maybe give some incentive to people to stay to the end of the video, because apparently it's a big problem when people just don't bother watching. The thing is, I'm not worried about that. I think, you know what? This does not, like, I think that's great advice. All of that is great advice. And I think, you know, if it works for you to create content that follows those guidelines, fantastic. You know, but it doesn't work for me. It gets in my way. And so for a while, this is what I'm going to do. It gets in the way while I'm trying to just find my feet, while I'm just trying to figure out how to do this, how I want to put out these videos, how I want to create these things. And right now, the priority for me is not to get as many people watching my videos to the end as possible. That is not my priority. My priority is not about the results I'm getting. My priority is about what I'm learning. My priority is about, in this process, discovering my most genuine, my most authentic, my most powerful way to communicate my truths. What does that look like? That is what I'm concerned about. I'm not concerned about the results and the views and the whatever. If I get the first part right, if I actually learn how to do this in the way that is most authentic to me, first of all, I'll get a lot more joy out of it. Second of all, the gains, which are internal, which are about me engaging in a process that helps me grow as a person, that is fulfilling to me in terms of helping me develop as a creator and develop my skills in expressing what I want to express. Those internal gains are like gold. They are worth so much more than any external results. But the great thing is, not only are they worth more, the great thing is, when you go after the internal gains, the external gains follow. So I'm not worried about the external gains. And I'm not going to worry about the stuff that I'm not able to do very well. I'm just going to keep developing and keep doing what I do. But, you know, I have come way off topic in a way, which is I do actually have a point. The point I wanted to make was that when I struggled to fold my clean laundry and put it away, there were so many things that actually got in my way and made that process really difficult for me. You know, most of the things that got in my way were mental. They were my thoughts. They were my thoughts, which then generated feelings of overwhelm and resistance. And there was just the whole ADHD thing with, you know, the scattered focus, the attention being on way too many things and not being able to really prioritize. But even though I laughed when my friend told me, "You're doing it wrong," I don't think those were his exact words, but that's what I got out of it. "You're doing it wrong." Even though I laughed, he was right. I was doing it wrong. If folding clean laundry and putting it away is so hard the way you do it that it never gets done, then you're doing it wrong. That's how you know if you're doing something wrong or not. If it's impossibly hard, you're doing it wrong. People often draw a different conclusion from that. When something is impossibly hard for them, they usually conclude, "I can't do this." But that's simply not the case. People are resourceful. People are amazing. If there's something that feels impossibly wrong, it's not the case that you cannot do it. It's the case that you cannot do it in the way that you're trying to do it. So you've got to switch up something in that equation if you're going to change the outcome. If you're going to change it so that you can do it, you've got to do it a different way. Does that make sense? But people tend to be really attached to the way that they're doing things, and then they insist, "This is the only way that I can do it. It has to be this way." Fine. If it has to be that way, then you're right. You cannot do it that way. You've proven that. If that's the case, don't keep going back to trying to do it that way. The way that you've proven doesn't work for you. So that's my big message for you today. Again, these things are kind of quite obvious, but weirdly, they're not things that we naturally do as humans, looking at things in this way, because you get attached to things. Those attachments are emotional. Emotions are powerful. So suppose, you know, like back then when my friend told me, "You're doing it wrong with the folding laundry," because I was like, it takes me 4 or 5 hours. "You're doing it wrong." I'm like, when he said that, I immediately thought, well, it takes that long because I'm folding it like this. And folding it like this just takes that long. But that's not true. It also took that long because I was doing other things, just like I'm doing right now. Like folding this laundry is taking me a really long time. I'm being very, very slow folding this laundry because I can't bring myself to actually just fold the laundry. If I were to just fold laundry and put it away, well, it is quite a slow method, to be fair. So it might take me an hour if I were to totally concentrate and just fold laundry, which of course before meds I couldn't do that. That was the whole problem, is that I couldn't just decide like, oh, I'm going to do this for an hour. Like I didn't have that ability to control where my attention went. I couldn't regulate my attention because ADHD is a disorder of attention regulation because, well, this is a whole other thing. So having read or listened to most of the audio version of ADHD 2.0, I understand now that, you know, with the neurology, there's like a part of your brain that generates thoughts like crazy and is imaginative and does creative stuff and looks at things past and future and all that kind of thing. It's not a part of your brain. It's what's called a connectome, which is like a network of it's a neural network. So it's particular sets of neurons that fire together to generate this kind of thinking. And then you've got a different connectome. You know, again, you know, accessing different neural pathways throughout your brain that activates when you're doing a task. When you don't have ADHD, those two connectomes never go at the same time. They kind of, you know, when one's going, the other switches off. So when you're tasking, you've not got that chatter, the creative chatter. When you have ADHD, that connectome with all the creative chatter, which is called the DMN, the default mode network, that network's always going. It never stops. It never shuts up. And so, yeah, it's incredibly hard to just fold laundry for an hour. Unless you get hyper-focused on it, but that's another story. But anyway, my point is, even folding it the way I'm folding it, if I had sort of approached it differently, approached it in a way that I actually, like I'm saying, like I should have just like concentrated on the one thing and done it till it was done. Would that have been possible for me? I attempted it lots and lots and lots and lots of times. And generally, like stuff like that was not possible for me. I could do it now. I'm still distractible, even on meds, but there's some element of choice I can choose when if I'm like, right, I really don't want to be distracted from folding laundry for this next hour. I'm just going to do that. I can do that now. That was not a thing. It was not an option for me before. Yeah. But anyway, I guess I could have kept going with trying to find a way to fold laundry and get it away in a much faster sort of way so that it actually got done. Kind of like the lady who did the TED Talk. I wish I could remember her name. I guess I could look it up and put it in the description. Yeah, I'll try to do that. But yeah, I could do something like she did, find a solution where she just, you know, chucks clothes very quickly so that it gets done so quickly she doesn't have time to get distracted. Could have done that, but I was super attached to my way of folding things. And when I heard about this lady system and I thought, well, I could do it that way. And there's no way I was going to swap from my way of folding things meticulously into these little bundles. There's no way I was going to swap from that to actually just chucking stuff into baskets, which is something I just did with a couple of hoodies because I'm going to hang them downstairs. But yeah, there are all these attachments. If you're willing to do things an entirely different way, then anything you find impossible will be much more doable. The stuff you cannot do, the stuff that is impossible for you to do, it's only impossible because you're doing it the way you're doing it. If you're willing to do it differently, it won't be impossible. But sometimes people are doing things that the way they are, not because they're attached to that way of doing things, but because they are misinformed. They think that's the way they have to do it. It's not like they want to do it that way. It's just the way that they've learned or picked up or been taught. And one thing that comes up a lot again and again and again, one example of this is when I meet people who say meditation doesn't work for them. They're like, oh yeah, meditation doesn't work for them. And then I'm like, oh, how so? What do you mean? Like, what doesn't work about it? What have you tried? I always find it really interesting to really delve into what someone is actually doing, like what that process looks like when they're trying to do something and not able to do it. Because the way they're doing it clearly is not the right way, right? And so I find it really interesting to hear what they're doing, because you can immediately identify the wrong way to do something. And so when people say, oh yeah, I can't meditate, I just can't. I've tried it. I love talking to people who have tried something and say they can't do it, as opposed to people who are like, oh no, that's not for me, I can't do it, but they've never tried it. That's different, because the thing getting in their way are their thoughts. It's not the actual thing. It's not the actual thing because they've not tried it. But people who have tried it and then they say, oh, that doesn't work for me, that is so interesting. So when people say, oh, I can't meditate, I've tried it, it really doesn't work for me. And I'm like, that's interesting. Like, what bit is it that's really hard? Or like, what do you do when you go to meditate? And they're like, well, you know, when I try to meditate, I just can't clear my mind of thoughts. I hear that so often. I find that a really interesting thing, that so many people who feel they cannot meditate, that meditate is not for them. I feel like the number one reason I encounter when people say that is that they just can't clear their heads. They can't clear their thoughts. So the natural question, like I can talk about why that would be such a huge stumbling block for anyone meditating. If I were to try to clear my mind of thoughts when I tried to meditate, I would fail. Everyone would, most people, unless you have a mind that doesn't generate thoughts, which means you're dead. Or if you generate very, very few thoughts, that's highly unusual. But yeah, I could tell you why that's the case, but suppose I didn't know why. I can tell you why from experience and from my understanding of what meditation is. But suppose I didn't have that experience, and suppose I didn't have the knowledge, and I was like thinking about maybe trying meditation, and then I was like doing this sort of like research, I guess, just finding out what happened for other people when they tried to meditate and couldn't. and they said, well, I can't clear my mind of thoughts, I would immediately think, if you can't clear your mind of thoughts, maybe is it possible that that's not a necessary step for meditation? Is meditation just for these super elite, rare, blissed out Zen monks who have got this almost supernatural ability to elevate into this superhuman state where they just clear their mind of thoughts? They go into a meditation and in this wizard-like way, just I take a breath, the thoughts disappear. Is that what meditation is about? Is that who it's for? Well, a lot of people think that's what it's about. A lot of people think that's who it's for. And then they're like, I'm not like that. I can't meditate. Yeah, I don't blame people for believing that if you've got this conception about what you'd have to be like in order to meditate, and you're like, that's not me. If I thought that's what meditation was, I wouldn't be able to meditate either. But that's not what meditation is about. So I make guided meditations. Although I've never actually, have I released any? Not really. I haven't released any yet, but I could. I've made so many and I've done loads. I used to do them on Clubhouse 4 days a week. Guided meditations that I would create on the spot. Love doing it. Really, really love doing it. I'm very, very, very familiar with that process. The process of meditating. And I can tell you right now that it has nothing to do with clearing your mind of thoughts. It's actually the opposite. It's about welcoming. It's about welcoming your thoughts in a way that they're like guests. So you acknowledge them. You're just like, because it would be pretty weird if someone turned up and you just ignored them the whole time. Or suppose you like pushed them. That would be pretty weird, wouldn't it? Or suppose you avoided them. You kind of like, suppose they were trying to like give you a gift. Because thoughts are kind of like that. They're trying to give you a gift. It's not the gift you think. It's not like, believe me, I'm the thought, I'm true. That's not the gift. The gift is like, here, I'm telling you something about your heart. I'm telling you something about your emotional state. I'm telling you something about your needs. That's what the gift is. So the thought's trying to like give you this gift. And the thought might be like a little child trying to give you this gift. They're like, here, have this gift. And you were just like running away from them. That would be pretty weird, right? If a child came to your house, like a nephew or niece or like, you know, your neighbor's child, and they were like, hey, I made a cake for you. And you were like running away. Like the thing is, or suppose you just like started fighting. Or suppose you just like completely got obsessed with them. Because these are very common reactions to obsessive thoughts. Or thoughts that people are really struggling with, the sorts of thoughts that you're trying to clear your mind of. I mean, if you're having trouble clearing your mind of thoughts, probably the thoughts that are on your mind have got some pretty important messages to you about the fact that you might be stressed, or you're trying to, often the thoughts are trying to show you that you're trying to control something that isn't controllable. You're trying to control an event or a person or a situation. Like if you're having loads of obsessive, stressful thoughts, those thoughts are arising from your fear of something or your desire for a particular outcome. And as you have this powerful sort of emotion, a desire to have your need met in a certain way, or the fear of losing something, or the fear of being endangered in some way, as you have these powerful emotions, your thoughts try to support you by creating some sense of delusional control. Because you're so afraid. You're so afraid of the stuff you can't control. You're so afraid of not getting the outcomes you really, really want. So your thoughts are trying to help you, kind of. They're kind of trying to help you feel as though maybe you do have a bit of control, but you don't. And so that's never going to work. Thinking obsessively about something is only going to reinforce to you the fact that you have no control over anyone else, over any situation, you don't control that stuff. You influence it all the time. You influence everything all the time by who you are, about the presence that you bring, about the way you respond, the way you are in a situation. That's true. In that way, you're constantly creating. You're creating outcomes around you. You influence things. You set your boundaries. You say what you want, how you feel, what you will and will not accept. You do that, but you cannot control anyone or anything else because you don't own that stuff. The only thing you own is yourself. So you own your feelings, you own your body. But anyway, this whole thing about people trying to clear their mind of thoughts when they go to meditate, and then they cannot clear their minds. And it's just the whole premise of that is misguided. Like, this is a very, very common misconception about meditation. And that's why people think they can't meditate, because they think this is necessary. They think this is what meditation is, but that's not what meditation is. And also they think that's how you deal with thoughts. That's even in that idea that you need to clear your mind of thoughts. Even in that idea, there is a thing that is just so mistaken. There's a belief that's so mistaken, and that belief is the idea that you can control your thoughts. You don't control your thoughts. Like guests that, come to your door. You don't control other people coming or not. You can try to barricade things and keep them out. You can do stuff, but you're not controlling other people's actions. Unless you're like an alien that's taken over their brain, which I don't think you are. If you think you are controlling other people's minds, maybe send me a DM and I'll chat to you about that, because yeah, that's probably not serving you, that whole thing. Oh, I don't think you can send people DMs on YouTube. You can find me on Instagram. I'm LeeSun Music on Instagram, and my DMs are open. But anyway, yeah, this idea that you can clear your mind is based on a belief that you can control your thoughts. You can't control your thoughts, but you can choose how to respond to your thoughts, just like you choose how to respond to your guests. Don't fight your thoughts. Don't avoid your thoughts. Don't try to push away your thoughts. Don't chase your thoughts. Don't chase your thoughts obsessively and turn them into more thoughts. Instead, just notice what your thoughts are and don't believe them. No, don't believe your thoughts. You'll know. You might be saying, okay, if I don't believe my thoughts, how do I know what to believe? How do I know what's true or not? Do you know what? You'll know. You'll know what's true or not. Because when you hold that idea within yourself, your heart will confirm it. You will have a sense of peace. That is the best way to confirm whether something is true or not. You reach this peace. Even if it's something that is a really hard truth. Suppose it's I need to leave this relationship. At some level, the part of you that confirms true things will confirm that's true. The thing is, your thoughts may try to get in the way because you might have fear, various fears and other sorts of attachments, that then your thoughts will generate arguments to try to fight you on it. And that's why it's important not to believe your thoughts. The place where you know things, the place where you know truths are in your heart. I'm going to say this all the time. I'm going to say this constantly, probably in every video, because it's something that I encounter literally constantly. People who get really confused about where to go for truth, people who get really confused about how to get clarity, people who are confused about how they know what they need to believe, people who are confused about the fact that they even have a choice about what they believe. They have these beliefs, the things that they are absolutely certain about being true, and then they fight so hard to defend these beliefs, not even true. And I'm not talking about belief like religion or politics or how to run a country. That's not the sort of thing I mean. I mean beliefs I suck at this, I can't do this. People will fight so hard to convince you that they suck at something. People will fight so hard to convince you that a situation at work is absolutely awful and horrible, or that things in their lives are absolutely awful and horrible. And they'll fight so hard to believe that. And I'm not saying, hey, everybody should just, stiff upper lip, stop complaining. That's not what I'm saying. And I'm not saying that life is not hard. But what I am saying is that if you just loosen up your grip on your beliefs about certain things being true, if you loosen up on that and look underneath those thoughts and beliefs, look at your own pain, look at your own anger, look at your own fears, look at your own desires that are underneath those beliefs and the thoughts that you're fighting so hard to defend. Look at your heart. Look at your heart underneath that. Because the important thing is not about defending those thoughts that have arisen from the pain in your heart or the things that you're really having a hard time with. The important thing is to notice where your heart's at. Not to blame you or anyone else for anything. It's important to notice where your heart is at, just so you can respond to your own heart with love. That is so important. Because if you're afraid of something, what would you do? What would you do if your child was afraid of the dark? Would you ignore them? Or would you acknowledge them? Would you go and try to fight the dark to get rid of all the dark so that they never ever are in dark? Is that what you would do? Or would you comfort them? I've kind of had to leave the folding of the laundry, although I've done almost all of it. I've done literally everything except for a couple of things. That was a pretty effective use of my time, but I had to stop for a moment because this is so important. This is really important for you to realize. Not to believe your thoughts. Some of your thoughts might be true. I'm not saying distrust and disbelieve all your thoughts. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying stay neutral. Stay neutral to your own thoughts. And first, before you get sucked into your thoughts and trying to control stuff that you can't control, instead of doing that, first pay attention to your heart. Because if your child were afraid of the dark and they were crying and they were, shaking from the fear, you wouldn't think the solution is to completely ignore them and just go on a huge campaign to obliterate all darkness from the whole world so that your child could walk around without ever being afraid. That's not what you would do. Or maybe you would. Again, if you would, you might want to have a look at why you're so sensitized to your child expressing their natural sort of emotions and stuff. Why, instead of responding to your child, you have to try to prevent them from ever feeling fear. You might want to have a look at that. But I think most people would actually not go on a worldwide campaign to make all spaces lit 24 hours a day. If your child were afraid of the dark, you would comfort your child. You would acknowledge your child. What might you say to your child? You might say, hey, I'm sorry you're so scared. But I promise you it's okay. I promise you it's okay. And you might feel afraid every time it's dark, but I'll always be here. I'll be here for you. You might say that. You might give them some new thoughts about the dark. Because if they're afraid of the dark, they might have some unhelpful thoughts about it. They might have no thoughts about it. They might just have this primal sort of visceral fear of the dark that's entirely natural. It is entirely natural, and it doesn't mean the dark is bad. It probably means that thousands of years ago, that in the dark, a wild animal might come and eat you. That's probably what it means. It means like light a fire so that you are not just sitting vulnerable in the dark for a bear or a wolf or something to come and have you for dinner. And that's probably what, the fear of the dark is. And it's similar with your fears and your anger and all those kinds of things. There's a good reason for those emotions, but the meaning is not what you think it means. It doesn't mean get rid of all the dark. If you're afraid of your partner leaving you in a relationship, the meaning is not you have to do everything possible to keep your partner there. The meaning is be compassionate to yourself, feeling that fear. Comfort yourself, give yourself some new thoughts and beliefs that serve you in a way that doesn't feed the fear, but feeds your belief in yourself and your ability to cope, that feeds your solidness in knowing that whatever happens, whether your partner leaves you or not, you will be absolutely okay. Yeah? And stuff like that. So the thoughts do not mean go control the things that your thoughts are trying to control. It's not about trying to make someone do something. It's not trying to make a situation into what you want. It's not, and because the more you go that direction, the more stressed out you're going to be. I promise you. Even if you're very good at that, even if you're very good at manipulating and managing situations and making them into what you want, and some people are, you can live your entire life being very good at that kind of thing. But I would question why you have a need to do that. Because if you're needing to do that, chances are that your self-belief is pretty low. It's pretty decimated. If you feel the need to control situations and other people, it means you believe you cannot cope. If you allow people to be as they are, if you don't control things. My number one sort of idea that I would love for you to keep considering and keep remembering is the idea, don't believe your thoughts. Don't believe your thoughts automatically. Have a look at what's underneath first. Have a look at your heart, your fears, your desires. Once you've done that, then you can look at the thoughts and in a better state, you can know, is this thought useful? Is this thought serving me? You will generally know when there's a thought that you have to be careful of. You will know that when you feel a really hard emotion, a really difficult emotion. If you feel irritation, annoyance, anger, frustration, hatred, resentment, bitterness, if you feel any sort of emotion, fear, if you feel any sort of emotion that is really just uncomfortable, or more than uncomfortable, quite painful, if you feel any emotion like that, that is a flag to you to check your thoughts. Check if you're believing your thoughts. Look at the thought and say, is this thought serving me? Is this thought connecting me to my best self, my most powerful self, my most free self, my most confident self? Is it? Always ask that. Is this thought serving me? If the answer is no, then ask yourself, what could I think instead? What could I think instead in this situation that would serve me? So going into an example of like, you're trying to do something. Suppose you're like me, you're trying to like create content. Suppose you're trying to create something and you're creating it and you're getting like worked up and it's really hard, and then you've spent what feels like an eternity trying to make something, and then you look at it and you're just like, oh, this is crap. And you're feeling bad about it. Okay, there's your flag. You're feeling bad. There's your flag to look at your thought. And you look at the thought that's linked to that feeling, and the thought is, this is crap. This is crap. What's the point? What a waste of time. Look at these thoughts. And then you go, are these thoughts serving me? Do any of these thoughts make me feel inspired or encouraged or help me learn something? Or because maybe they might. I'm not assuming that those thoughts are just going to immediately lead to a bad decision or outcome for you. But for most of us, those thoughts aren't going to help. But everyone's different. You know, you have to always consider it. You have to consider it in the context of whether it's working for you or not, whether it's serving you or not, what it's like in your heart. You always have to consider it in that context. And so suppose thinking, oh, this is crap, this isn't working. Maybe those thoughts do work for you. Maybe like when you have those thoughts, that actually makes you sort of like hunker down and generate, some sort of ideas on a better way to do things. And then you go for it, and then you come up with something better. Maybe that's part of your learning process. But for most people, having those thoughts are actually going to slow you down and get in the way of your learning process. And so you might swap out those ideas with the sorts of thoughts and ideas that you would give a friend or someone you really, really love who were in your shoes. So someone's like trying to create something and it's been really hard. And they're really unhappy with what they've done. What thoughts might you offer someone in that situation? You might say, hey, you're learning. Hey, well done for showing up and trying. Well done for giving things a go. And for sure, I can guarantee it that if you simply show up and keep practicing, I guarantee you're going to learn and you're going to get better. But just keep an eye out for when you're trying to do things in a way that really isn't you. Keep an eye out for that. Don't try to force yourself to do anything. You can try stuff, for sure. Try stuff that is an alien idea to you. But don't beat yourself up over it. Try it just to see, because you never know. You might actually find that useful. But don't try to make yourself be like this person or that person. Don't try to make yourself do it only in this way. Unless it's an exercise where doing it that way is just about you being curious about, if I do it in this way, what would happen if I tried it like 10 days in a row like that? What would it be like for me on the 10th day versus the 5th day versus the 1st day? If you're curious about that, then yeah, go for it. That could be really interesting. But if you're doing that process, curiosity is not about judging. It's not about going like, oh, this is crap, this is still crap, this is still crap. That's not what curiosity is. Curiosity looks like, ooh, that's interesting. That's interesting. This bit worked better than that bit. Ooh, that's interesting. I really like this bit. Ooh, that's interesting. I'm really uncomfortable with this bit. And then you look at why you're uncomfortable with that bit. When I was watching back my video from yesterday, there are points where I pause and I'm trying to think of what happens next. And while I'm thinking, I just like roll my eyes around like that. It looks kind of strange to me because I've never seen myself do that. I'm not generally, in fact, I don't think it's possible to see yourself do that unless, how would you be able to see what that looks like if you didn't see on video? Like, suppose you had a video camera sort of facing you, filming that, and then that video camera was in a mirror that followed the trajectory of your eyes, like the way you were looking, so that you were looking at that screen showing you like your face on view. Suppose you were looking at that with your eyes as you did that, then I guess you could then see what that looked like. Well, that seems like a complicated setup, and I don't have a complicated setup like that. But then I can just watch back a video and then I can see what I look like when I do that. But I didn't even know I was doing that. And it was quite strange seeing me do that. And when I first saw it, I was like, am I okay with that? Like, do I look really weird doing that? Like, the thought flashed through my mind and I was just like, whatever. I guess like I've got, a lifelong habit. I've got a decades-long habit of responding to myself with self-acceptance. And so if I notice judgments arising, I don't believe the judgments. So if like the judgment is like, ooh, I look kind of weird, I don't go, I look kind of weird. I don't like believe that. It's just a judgment. It's just a thought. It doesn't mean I actually look weird. It means, well, first of all, it means that I looked weird to me in that moment. I may or may not look weird to other people. And if I do, it doesn't mean that that matters. Like, I'm not going to take my judgment of it, which is like, ooh, I look kind of weird doing that. I'm not going to take my judgment of that, then project it on everybody else, and then imagining everybody else thinks I look weird in that and are going to fixate on that 2-second thing out of like an hour-long video. I'm not going to then think that that's actually important. So I feel like I could talk about this for a really long time because it's really important to me and I'm really passionate about it, and also because I help people with this process, and I want to help you with this process so that you can be less self-judging, so that you could be more self-accepting, so that you can be more self-compassionate. And as you do that, as you become more and more self-compassionate and self-loving, your life will change. Your life will change. Even if everything in your life externally stays the same, which it probably won't, but even if it does, your experience of those things will change. And at least in this way, in this one way, life doesn't have to be so hard. Because as far as I know it, and as far as I've encountered, there are hard things that come up in life for absolutely every single person. Absolutely everyone. I guarantee it. Everyone has tough things. And people have this tendency to look at other people who seem to not be having a tough time in the way that you're having a tough time. People have a tendency to look for that because that's your pain point. Like if you're finding a certain thing really hard and painful, you are going to notice. You're going to notice when other people aren't finding that thing painful. Everybody does that. And then while doing that, commonly, most people conclude they don't have a hard life, not like I do. And you know what? They're right. Those people don't have a hard life in the same way that you do. They have a hard life in a different way. And I'm not saying that all suffering is equal and that some people's lives aren't much, much, much tougher than other people's in certain ways. But that doesn't help it doesn't help you. It doesn't help you if those are the thoughts you believe. And it doesn't help you if that's what you're always on the lookout for. The thing that helps you to deal with the hard things in your life is to give yourself as much as possible the things that you most need. That's your acceptance, your love, your support, your encouragement, your service. Serve yourself. Serve yourself with your thoughts. Serve yourself with your actions. When you do something, when you think something, consider, is this serving me? Do things that serve you. When you say yes, when you say no to other people's requests, ask yourself, is this serving me? I know that sounds very selfish, But this is the amazing and paradoxical, magical thing, is that when you serve yourself fully and truly and wholeheartedly and unashamedly, when you start looking at everything in that way, that's when you become more able to serve others. You have more capacity. That's when you become more able to deal with the tough things in your life, because the tough things don't go away. I love a Jim Rohn quote. Where he says, don't wish for things to be easier. Wish that you were better. Because people, when they're experiencing hard things, they wish things were easier. But that's just wishing they can control the things they can't control. But instead of wishing things were easier, if you look at how you can show up in a different way, where you're not being assaulted by your thoughts, where your thoughts are serving you, when you look at how you can show up in a different way, then you shift your focus from something you cannot control onto something you can control, something that you absolutely own and are fully responsible for, you and only you. I think that's all I have to say for now. I've gone over an hour and a half. This time I might actually chop this video into 2 parts. This is what it looks like. This is what it looks like when I do a YouTube video in my way, when I share in my way, in a way that's true to me. And maybe, being an hour and a half, this is going to not get watched the whole way through by many people. Maybe this won't go viral. Oh no, what'll I do if this doesn't go viral? Yeah, my aim is not to create a 2-minute thing that you just think, oh, ha, 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 that's so hilarious, or that is such a great idea. This is so true. Not that there's anything wrong with those sorts of things, but that's not what I'm here for. I'm going to say this again and again and again. I am not here to entertain you. If you are entertained, fantastic, that's a bonus. That's like icing on the cake. I'm not here to entertain you. I am here to educate you a little bit. And I say that without any kind of arrogance. It's not that I think that I'm better than you or anything like that. In fact, I'm not. I've shared some of my struggles with you. I can't even fold a load of laundry and get it away, which is something that maybe 90% of grown-ups can do, but actually maybe that's just me sort of projecting that whole life is easier for everyone else than it is for me thought onto the world. Maybe the figure is more like 50%. I would love to do a survey. How many people can fold, clean laundry and get it put away in less than 5 days after it's clean and dry? How many? Would it be 90%? Would it be 80, 70? Maybe it's like 50%. But anyway, I'm trying to tell you what I'm here for. I am here to educate you about these things that so many people get wrong. I'm saying that because this is my experience. Like I said in my last video, I'm 48. I'm 49 this year. I don't know, that feels like a lot of experience. It feels like I've met a lot of people and encountered a lot of people, like whether in person or virtually, or, it's like thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands of people. And I keep running across the same misconceptions, the same common misguided beliefs, whether that's about what to do with your thoughts. So remember, don't believe your thoughts automatically. And then look underneath. Look at your heart. I've kind of given, some examples of what that process might look like, what it could look like. Respond with compassion. So yeah, misconceptions about what to do with your thoughts, how to respond to them, whether to believe them or not. There are common misconceptions about what it means to meditate, what meditation is. There's this common misconception about clearing your mind of thoughts, this idea that that's something you control. There's a lot of misconception about what you control and what you don't. There's so much striving to control stuff, prepare for every eventuality. There's an element of that could be healthy when you do good prep work, or when you do have things in place, when you set up systems to support your life and you, in case things do go wrong or in case certain things happen. Sure, that could be good. Maybe I would do that kind of thing if I didn't have ADHD. Maybe I would do, take out life insurance. I hope I don't get a lot of hate from saying that. Because obviously, you might feel very passionately that as a parent, as a single parent of 2 children, one very young still, maybe you feel very passionately that I should have life insurance. I don't know. Right now, I don't have that conviction. I feel like I need to sort out my life. I need to share my truth. I need to keep doing what I find is right for me through the sort of processes that I have talked about at length. So I'm not here to entertain you. I'm not here to give you stuff to go viral. I am here to change your life. I am here to help you change your life. I'm here to help you do things differently. And I'm not saying your life is super messed up, and I'm not saying you are super messed up, but what I am saying is that these are problems that I see all around me. These are the problems that I see people having. And I'm here to help with that. I'm here to help debunk a lot of these myths, these false beliefs, so that you can have a little bit more freedom in your life, so that you can know what to focus on, so that you can know how to connect with your own heart and find what things you really want to believe. I'm here so that, I wonder if I have any drink left. Oh, thank goodness I do. I'm getting so parched. Partly from talking for nearly 100 minutes, but also because of the ADHD meds I'm on, which are stimulants. They do give me a really dry mouth often. But anyway, yeah, I'm here showing up in this way because I see this need and I am responding to it. It makes me really emotional because as I say that, I just am struck with all the pain and the suffering that I see and that I encounter in people all the time. Because you can look at a person anytime somebody is behaving in a way that seems really hard to understand, or anytime someone's doing something that is harmful for themselves or harmful for other people, or anytime someone is suffering a lot, for sure they're caught in these traps. And these traps of believing things that are not true. These traps of chasing after the wrong things. And these traps of not knowing, and this is the key thing, and that's why this channel is called Self-Love Roadmap. They're caught in the trap of not knowing, not recognizing that they are not loving themselves, that they're not being kind to themselves. And the process of being kind to yourself and loving to yourself, it's internal. It's not about going to the spa every day. It's not about going on holiday every day. It's not about giving yourself treats to eat. I mean, like, all that stuff can be nice and good and fun too, but that is not self-love. Because love starts with your heart. And it's not about indulgence, although indulgence can be fun too and pleasurable. But love is about the invisible, internal things. That's where it starts. It starts with the intention and the attention. And then out of that intention and attention, like as you pay attention, you become aware. And as you become aware of how you regard yourself, how you treat yourself, how you think of yourself, as you become aware of when you try to control yourself, when you're trying to push yourself, and this is different from when I say, there are things you can not control, like the external stuff, and the things that you can control. For example, your response to yourself. That's not the control I'm talking about. When I'm talking about when you try to control yourself in a way that's not aligned with who you are. So you're trying to push yourself to fit into a box or into other people's expectations, or to achieve a particular thing so you can prove that you're worthy, or that you can live up to your idea of what your value comes from. When you do that kind of thing, that is the opposite of being loving to yourself, and the message that you send yourself is really painful. It's going to cause a lot of suffering. And that's why I'm here, because I see this a lot, literally in just about everyone. And so I'm going to keep talking about these things, the invisible things, the internal things. I'm also going to talk about these things. A funny thought just occurred to me. I'm also going to talk about these things because it's a lot easier. It's a lot easier to bring these ideas to you by just talking about them. It's a lot easier to do that than it is to get everyone in the world to just intentionally practice mindfulness every day. If you were to grow a practice of mindfulness yourself every day, I think you would come to see all these things that I'm talking about. And maybe that's where, that was a part of how I came to discover these things. Like, I've had a hard journey here. It's not like I was just born noticing this stuff and seeing this stuff. You know, I had some really hard years of self-judgment, of trying to make myself fit into a box. But yeah, I'm going to keep talking about these things because as the ideas kind of trickle in, and please just consider these things with an open heart. Try them out, test them, see if it works for you. You know, your guide, your compass will always be your own heart. You know, as you take on different ideas and test out different beliefs, see if that brings you more peace or less peace. And if it brings you more peace, do more of that. I'm only here to point you back to your own heart. That's all I'm trying to do. And that's all I'm doing here. I'm just saying, hey, listen to your own heart. And this is what that looks like. It looks like talking to yourself like this. It looks like examining your thoughts and not believing them. It looks like noticing when you're feeling difficult emotions. It looks like responding to yourself with understanding and acceptance and compassion and curiosity, wanting to know what you feel, wanting to know what you want, always wanting to know, just genuinely curious. It means having patience with yourself. It means having huge patience with yourself. And so, like, if you notice yourself, like, something's taking much, much longer for you than you would like, or you've done that same mistake again, or you've failed in some way again, it means having huge patience and compassion with yourself in those moments, being okay with those difficult things instead of trying to fix it and instead of trying to blame someone or something for that difficult emotion. It means just looking to be with yourself and comfort yourself in that feeling. And after you do that, this is actually magical. After you comfort yourself in a difficult feeling, you let it go. You don't go into your thoughts and then think about why that was so hard for you and what was so hard and annoying or angering or whatever. You don't go into your thoughts. It's about cultivating this practice of understanding your thoughts as guests that are coming to your house to give you a gift, and that gift is to point you back to your own heart, to understand your heart. It's about understanding what your thoughts are there for. You know, those thoughts, you know, they're just visitors that have come. They've come because they've got something for you. And so take the gift. Take the gift. Thank the thought and wish it well, and it will go. And you don't have to go into more and more and more thinking. If I can get that idea to land with you, I guarantee you, your stress levels are going to reduce. Guaranteed. I find it hilarious that, not really hilarious, it's kind of sad, but yeah. It's kind of hilarious that there are so many people who are so stressed, who are looking for ways to relieve their stress. They're looking to relieve the stress that they are creating themselves with their thoughts. What about if you stopped creating so much stress with your thoughts? Crazy, right? Stop creating so much stress. It's not the events around you that are creating the stress. It's the thinking that you're doing around those events. It's not about the situation that's creating the stress. I was sick for nearly 5 weeks over Christmas. This Christmas that just went by a few months ago. My younger son had scarlet fever. He was so ill. It was so hard. Like, he had this crazy high temperature, like a raging fever to the point of, you know, hallucinating, like really bad, and giving him all the medicines, like Calpol, Calprofen, kind of alternating. It brought down his temperature a tiny bit to just get him out of the hallucinating range, but it was still like, I think it lowered to 39 or 40 on the medication. It was so high. And his throat was so painful that he was just like a tiny shell of himself, just like hardly able to move and just whimpering for days. It was awful. I just went to Boots and I got like everything that I could. That was like pain relief. I was like, okay, we've got to wait for this to pass over. But in the meantime, it's really hard that he's in so much pain. And then I was also really ill. I had flu, it turns out. I ended up being sent to the hospital by my doctor because I was tachycardic. That's a word. I just found it out. That's a word for when your resting heart rate is above 100. And my resting heart rate was about 120 when I was sick. And that was without the ADHD meds. I stopped taking the meds because I just was like, what's the point? I can't hardly function. I can't even get up out of bed, even though my kids need me. And so, yeah, I was sent to the hospital and they tested me for various things. It came up positive for influenza A. It wasn't COVID. I was so ill. I feel like COVID may not have felt as badly as I felt when I had the flu, but I think I had it a number of times because it was like 5 weeks of illness. And during that time, which was a very stressful time, there was the pain of the actual sickness. And there was the immense struggle around trying to do stuff every day that needed to be done, that if I didn't do it, nobody was going to do it. Although my older son did as much as he could as well too. He hadn't been well either, but he's very stoic and just doesn't display it, or he just had much milder symptoms. He just said, oh, I think I'm sick. That's all he said each day. Oh, I think I'm sick. And then he spent a lot of time just in bed. But yeah, all of us were sick for a long time. Me, the longest of all, I think. During that time, there was the difficulty with just getting through it, but I knew I had a choice about how much stress I was going to generate in that time. If I tried to make myself do any more than the absolute bare minimum on any given day, that was going to heighten my stress because I would be asking myself to do stuff I couldn't do. Also, if I started thinking about all the stuff that I wished I could be doing, that was also going to heighten my stress. That is the thing about thoughts. You've got to watch it. Like in the moment, when there are things that you can't control, and I wasn't able to control our state of health in that time. But while that was going on, I knew every single day, all day long, I was extremely conscious of the fact that it was up to me whether I was going to stress out about this. And so many people compound their suffering and their pain of the situation by generating a ton of stress because it gives them this illusion of control. An illusion of control in a situation that they cannot control. Somehow thinking about it and thinking about all the stuff that they wish they could be doing, that act of thinking can give this illusion of control, which is comforting to the part of you that is really, really struggling with that lack of control. But It's deceptive. Obviously, that's why it's an illusion of control. Thinking about things more doesn't actually give you any more control or power. In fact, it puts you in this stressed state, which makes you less able to cope with what's going on. You know, the stress hormone is cortisol. So when you're doing that thinking, you're immediately raising your cortisol levels. I don't think cortisol levels, like high cortisol levels, what are they useful for? I think they're only really useful if you're fighting a bear or running from a tiger. I think they might be useful for that. So if you're not doing one of those things, then you might want to interrupt those thoughts so that you don't add to your pain by heaping a whole lot of stress on top of it. Okay, I've actually talked for 2 hours. I've actually talked for 2 hours about this stuff. I'm not apologizing, but I may chop this video in half so that it's easier for people to consume. If you've stuck with this video to the very, very end here, I just high five, congratulations. And thank you. Thank you for spending this time with me. I hope this has served you. If this has served you, please like, share, subscribe, or reach out. I'm on Patreon. If you look up LeeSun, that's LeeSun, LeeSun on Patreon. I don't know how the Patreon's going to go. At the moment, I've got 2 subscribers on there. 2, I guess they're called Patreons? Are they called patrons or Patreons? I don't know. Again, that's another thing that I started up before I was on meds. Just like I started up so many different things and never actually was able to turn up. I have a mailing list as well. At the moment, the only way to get onto my mailing list is going to LeeSunMusic.com, and then I think a pop-up comes up and you put in your email. I have a mailing list, which is funny because I almost never send out emails to my mailing list. It's existed for years because I never really understood what a mailing list was for. And I was too overwhelmed by life, kind of just coping with my day-to-day life stuff to even be doing something like reaching out to a lot of people when I had no idea what that was even for. But now that I'm on meds, it's amazing. I have just so much space. I have so much headspace and energy to do stuff, like reach out to people and connect and show up and share my message. I have all this space and energy and clarity because I'm not spending all my energy just trying to eat and feed my kids and do laundry and try to clear a path across the room, because it would be so chaotic that most of the time to walk across any room, you would have to step over stuff or step on things. In fact, the living room is like that right now. Even on meds, I still could do with some help when it comes to some things. But before I was on meds, it was next level. like now, stuff is like that because I'm actually able to do stuff that's important to me, like this kind of thing. But yeah, and that's okay with me, because once I went on meds, it wasn't like the medication suddenly changed all my priorities and values. It's not like suddenly I was like, ooh, the most important thing to me is cleaning my house. That didn't happen, funnily enough. But it did mean that if I was like, ooh, it would be good to spend an hour tidying today, it meant that when I had that thought, it'd be good to spend a bit of time tidying today, I actually spent a bit of time tidying instead of feeling overwhelmed by it and unable to do it and then attempting it and not being able to actually do any of it. That's what it has meant. So yeah, I'm able to show up here in this way. If you want to hear from me, yeah, go to LeeSunmusic.com, put in your email. When I figure out how I want to connect on email, I will send you something. But my thoughts with the email thing is that it's a sort of opportunity for me to create a very different thing from this kind of just talking on a video. It's very different from that. So what I might do in the emails, I think, is to just send kind of like affirmations, but not affirmations. Maybe I'll use emails to send very, very, very short, compact ideas. You know, like the ideas I live by, which are create more than I consume. Create more than you consume. That's an idea I live by. Or curate carefully what I consume. From the stuff I've spoken about today, I might have something like, don't believe your thoughts automatically. Look underneath. So I might do that. I might think of like, you know, the thought of the day or the thought of the week or whatever. I might just send out like one line and maybe like a link to the video that's related that people can watch if they want to watch a video. Might do that kind of thing. I think that would be fun. If you want that, go to LeeSunmusic.com and put your email address in. Yeah. And for Patreon, that's kind of like, it's so, I'm just amazed that I can think about all these things and not be super overwhelmed. Because up until 4 months ago, that wasn't possible. Like every aspect of everything like this was just so overwhelming to me. Even though I have so much to say, obviously, and even though I have helped people for years, doing one-to-one coaching sessions, which is something that I love doing. I love doing a session where I get to personally witness a shift, where I personally get to witness some transformation, where I personally get to guide you through a process, where I get to find out more about you, where you're at, where I get to find out something about a habit that you have or a belief that you have that needs examining, where I can help you swap out a belief that isn't true or a belief that isn't serving you for a different belief that does serve you and support you in your life. I love doing that kind of work. And it's incredible when it happens person to person, well, virtually, face to face, live. That's incredible, being a part of someone's journey in that way. So if you're interested in doing any one-to-one sessions with me, send me a message. You can send me a message on Instagram, LeeSun Music, or you can email me. Just email hello@leesunmusic.com. I am in the middle of setting up a website, setting up a website, selfloveroadmap.com. And when I say I'm in the middle of it, I mean I've been thinking about it for like months and months and months and not done anything about it. But once I decide what it's going to say, what the website's going to say, I'll get it live. And then that'll be another way that you can get in touch with me if you want. Okay. Sending you lots and lots of love and wishes to help you connect with your heart and your joy, not so you can be some sort of Zen master on a cushion. Do Zen masters sit on cushions? I think they do. That's not the aim. But I want to help you connect with your joy in your heart so that you can fully experience your life the way that you want, and so that you can show up in the best way possible to deal with the tough stuff, because that's when it matters. And even if you create your absolute dream life, there will always be tough things to deal with. So, bye for now. Lots of love. Thank you for journeying with me.